Do you know what the world needs the most right now? That's right, more Steve tech. So we've gone over before how if you're standing on solid ground while above the top blast zone, you will die. Of course, that's just how it works in Smash Ultimate. Steve, however, is playing a different game. And if you're in minecart while on a surface above the top blast zone, he doesn't really care. We can see the me dying from this same scenario, but Steve just stays up there, only falling back down because those stage elements unloaded. This is important because of this stage, Great Cave Offensive, coming from a tech initially discovered by Alex on my Discord. You want to start off by giving yourself a rocket belt, then go over to this lava wall and fly up. You're going to want to squeeze as much height as you can get, and at the peak, just use minecart into the wall and you'll be on top of it. So yeah, the wall that you see here doesn't go up forever, and normally that's not an issue because anyone who wants to get up there will just die instantly, as per the top blast zone rules we just went over. But because Steve's minecart ignores that rule, he's allowed to just be up here forever. Like, actually, there's no resource limit for him just sitting in his minecart or anything, so he can just camp here for as long as he wants. Yeah, that's cool, that's fun, yeah. There were a few weird things to go over with this. For one, when I tried to move back and forth, sometimes it worked, but like in batches? Like I can move a little, then it'll stop me, then go again, contrary to how minecart normally works where it's a lot more steady in motion. And while I could go to the side blast zone and die, yippee, or to the left and just fall back off of the lava cliffside, there were moments where I just got fully stuck. No inputs would ever do anything, outside of obviously jumping out of the minecart, which obviously kills me. Though I could sometimes manage to get back onto my minecart, so I guess it's not instantly despawning or anything. Now, if I hugged the wall and flew up, I'd eventually get hit by the lava, which surprisingly doesn't KO me. I went over to a normal match to take a proper gander at what we're working with, and even with our limited view, what we can see kinda matches that. Like what hit me earlier was lava, so I was expecting this curve to come from lava instead of just basic wall, but in looking at things through this camera angle, it does add up. I guess the very top of this lava wall just comes out a slight bit. It is interesting just how quickly the lava goes away though, given that the off-screen bubble shows a lot more of it in the background. Now once you get far enough away, this bubble stops being too reliable, but it's still really interesting given that I was expecting there to be a lot more heat up here. And yes, by using this angle, we can actually see Steve get over the cliff with the minecart. And it looks like everything is perfectly in line with where you would expect it to be. No invisible walls or floors or any jank like that, which I thought was super interesting. Now I gotta say, this wall is really high, so your methods of getting up there without items or spirits are limited, especially for someone with concrete legs like Steve. Like, you can't build up past this point anyways. Though it is technically possible to do this with stage morph, if you just get into that position beforehand. But then you wouldn't be there forever because the stage would morph again, which is actually kind of funny to see, just showing Steve fall down from the cliff top. Slight tangent, but even this method is pretty limited, as you can only really get into position if you're already on a really large stage. If it's smaller, then even with a walk-off, you'll just be a bit far off from being able to actually jump onto the wall given where it comes from. Also, another tangent, but I knew that the period between stage morphs removes certain gameplay elements to prevent things from breaking. I just didn't realize that included ladders as well, which stopped working in that transition phase. Made it a pretty good indicator that the morph was coming up though. Well, actually, the springs also made a sound when it happened, which was weird since they didn't change visually or anything, but they did lose their function, I don't know. But on the topic of Steve being here forever, yeah, that just sucks for everyone else. You could try to attack him by getting your own rocket belt, or what have you, and throwing out some projectiles, but actually lining that up could be pretty difficult.
Not for me though, cause I got it first try.
And luckily, this type of forever stalling can only really happen on this stage with this mechanic, as there aren't really other stages out there with this type of off-screen terrain to stand on. You know, that doesn't move around. But yeah, maybe don't counterpick Steve on the Great Cave Offensive going forward if you have rocket belts on. Definitely keep that in mind. Speaking of which, completely unrelated but not really, I found that by sitting in a minecart forever, Steve actually keeps the rocket belt on himself indefinitely, while it's normally supposed to fly off after a certain period of time. This didn't happen with any other equipment I tested, so it's likely due to the fact that the rocket belt unequipping itself also bounces the user up a bit, and Steve can't bounce when he's in the minecart, so it just makes sense. The split second he leaves the minecart, the rocket belt flies away, so it's not really that crazy, but I guess you can kinda store this rocket belt part here, sure. Alright, I think that's enough Steve for one day. So let's actually go back to stage morphs, with this prompt that Rainbow Fantasy gave me on my Discord. It's a simple one, but there are some things in the game that are stage specific, like this egg that Birdo can shoot at you on the Mushroom Kingdom 2 stage. If you didn't know, you can actually pick this up, and it's a surprisingly strong item, more so than when you get hit with it normally. So obviously this means you can even pocket it if you like, or otherwise just hang on to it as long as you want. You can already see where this is going. If you either keep carrying the item or have it in your pocket, when the stage morphs to somewhere else, you'll actually keep it on the new stage. It's the kind of thing that makes full sense, but you might just not think about it. Smuggling stage-specific assets to other stages. It looks kinda cursed, but it's real. Well, only kinda. You see, there's this other stage-specific item called a pellet, found on Distant Planet. They only spawn when items are currently active, but like Birdo's egg, they can be held or pocketed. But when the stage morphs away, you'll notice that the pellet in Olimar's hand just disappears. So this one is more tied to the stage itself than Birdo's egg.
Oh, but what about the one in my pocket?
It's still there as shown by the UI, right? Well, when I unpocket it, I pull out nothing. That's right, Isabelle is broke. Doesn't even have any pocket sand. Even if I smuggle the pellet through the whole stage morph until I loop back to Distant Planet, it'll still be gone when I unpocket it. So maybe its data was just fully wiped the moment the stage morphed away? Let's test out some other items. The apples on green greens that you can occasionally see and hold on to are another item candidate.
Now leave your comments below. Do you think these will stay or go?
Well, I hope you can write comments within 5 seconds because the answer is that they stay. The apples have no problem sticking around in their new dimension. It's kind of neat seeing them in this new lighting. Okay, let me think about other things you can hold. Oh, the shell creepers and sidesteppers on the Mario Bros stage are also things that you can hold and pocket. So can we bring our 2D sewer friends to the big city? Well, clearly not, as the crab gets vaporized mid-stage morph, but strangely enough, they also got forcefully removed from our pockets, unlike the pellet. I guess they really didn't want to take their chances here. It's okay though, because their souls were reincarnated into Smash Balls to be with you forever. Or something, I guess. Now hold on, I'm kind of blanking on other things. Oh, Tortimer Island. You can sometimes find trees on this stage that'll occasionally drop a variety of fruits. These are the kinds you eat automatically rather than picking them up as items most of the time, but we can still pocket them. Now, in this first test, trying to unpocket them after the stage morph left us with nothing.
And now we're gonna starve.
But there's another thing on this stage, the coconuts, whose pocket icons are bombs. Because, well, they're bombs. Yeah, 2 SpongeBob references in a row. And when I stage morph like this, once again, the edible fruits do not properly unpocket, but the coconut does. Again, looking a bit funky in this new lighting. This is where things get pretty messy though. When I tried to unpocket the coconut going into PictoChat, it didn't spawn in. So that's kind of big. It means it's not just whether or not the item can survive the morph, but also if it can even work on the new stage. So the coconut was fine on Final Destination, and it was fine on Battlefield. Whereas for reference, the pellets from before were not able to be unpocketed on Battlefield. And then we get to durians, which are basically the same as coconuts, but also not, because the durian couldn't handle existing on Battlefield, nor in Final Destination, but for whatever reason was just fine on Gamer, except it wasn't even fine there, since I still couldn't unpocket it. So what, it just didn't survive the trip in pocket, but it could when being held out? Man, even that mechanic was weird. I had one moment where I unpocketed a coconut right before transitioning into Final Destination, and it disappeared. And reminder, it should be compatible with this stage. And yet another time when I unpocketed it during the transition, it was fine. I tried out other stage combinations with other items like I'd gone over before, but I don't know. The pellet still didn't work on other stages. The green greens apples worked both on Battlefield and even PictoChat. The latter of which was apparently a death zone for smuggling items before, and if you noticed, this even worked for the edible apples, not just the item version. So if you wanted an answer to the question of, can you smuggle stage-specific items and projectiles to different stages? The answer will be sometimes yes, but also sometimes no, please stop talking to me. Okay, I want to move on to other things, but even more so, I want to bring up the source of my prompts. For this video, it's been Discord, which I do have a link to down below if you want to join and submit your own things, but believe it or not, I'm actually going to be reviving the fax submission form. I'd made one a long time ago, but I'd gotten way more submissions than I could deal with and just sort of abandoned it. But given that it's now pretty outdated, meaning a lot of submissions could just be patched out by now, I figured that a fresh start with the currently no longer being patched version of the game would be best. So if you have any random pieces of trivia that you want to submit, see on the channel, and get credited for, that's what this new form is for. But not just submissions. You can ask questions on things you've always wondered about but haven't seen anyone test. And if I feel like enough people also wouldn't know the answer, I'll showcase it in a video. And brand new, you can just submit your clips. Anything funny, cool, or janky that you'd want me to show off, just for fun. If I get enough, I could do an exclusive video on them, but if not, I can just throw them into outro sections with credit or anywhere else I feel is fitting. Now, preferably they'd have more casual elements rather than exclusively being competitive clips. Things with items and wacky stages and all that fun stuff. You know, my branding, my entire purpose in life. So that's now an option, as I've been hoping to get back into doing just random facts alongside the more structured videos, so we'll see how long that lasts. Alright, back to the video. Rufio gave me a prompt on my Discord regarding the portraits on the boxing ring jumbotron. If you didn't know, the jumbotron on this stage will occasionally showcase 2 of the fighters currently present, alongside a unique title. Actually, if you didn't know that, go watch my last upload. But anyways, this obviously comes with their portrait. However, if you go into the move list from the pause menu, when these portraits come back...
Guys? I think Mario is missing.
There's a few weird things about this though. For one, this didn't remove the portrait the moment I opened the move list, as long as they were already present in the background when I did this. And also, even with Mario gone here, Mr. BMI Bandit himself is still present. At first I was thinking, maybe this happens when you open the move list to their characters specifically. But even this didn't remove Wii Fit Trainer, so then I thought, maybe it's because this is male Wii Fit Trainer, whose portrait and title is different from females, which is the version that you see in the move list. So it was time to test out other characters. Here I opened the move list to Kirby, because it defaults to player 1's page I guess, but I didn't touch Ganondorf's. And like I expected, Kirby's portrait is gone, but Ganondorf is still there just fine. But when I scroll over to Ganondorf's move list, then he'll disappear. I even did a test to the maximum with Piranha Plant and Palutena, where I viewed every single move list profile except for Palutena's. Literally every single one. And while Piranha Plant was gone, Palutena was still there. This hard confirms that it's specifically viewing a character's move list entry that gets rid of their profile on this jumbotron. And my guess is that it's tied to what's appearing here? I mean, it's the only thing I can think of, as this render is what's normally used on the jumbotron, so I guess by showing it off here, it takes it away from the boxing ring screen somehow. And this goes in line with the male Wii Fit Trainer thing too. We can echo that test with the Inklings, where only the default orange one gets sent to the Shadow Realm, and the blue boy Inkling is fine. So it's not a case of characters with different boxing ring titles. Instead, it's just based on alts. Anyone who's not using the default appearance of that character won't disappear, because their alternate costume is not showing up in the move list. It's so small, but so funny to me that something like this would even happen. I don't know how many people even know that there's a move list option in the pause menu anyways, let alone anyone who actually uses it in the middle of a match, but I'm sure there's at least some players that have been affected by this in the past, and were left gobsmacked without any explanation.
So now you know.
And no, you can't do this for the move list in training mode, because the jumbotron portraits simply don't appear in training mode. Oh well. Lastly, for this video is a tweet from King Krugbo regarding a silly interaction with King K. Rool. Basically, just watch this. If you don't know much about these moves, let me assure you, neither the crown nor the blunderbuss suction shot should deal that much knockback, even at those percents. So what's happening? Clearly K. Rool is taking about 19% from the blunderbuss at first, but here we can see that an additional 19% came out, so somehow the blunderbuss is hitting him twice. Though we can actually tell a lot from these numbers, as typically getting shot out of the move only does around 14%. What deals closer to 19 is when you get hit by someone who was launched out of the blunderbuss. And as you can clearly see, this also does way more knockback. Like, geez, I did not know that this was this strong. And yes, it's not exactly 19% here because we no longer have the 1v1 multiplier, but we can clearly tell that this is the projectile hit that's happening in the clip. But how? There's only one opponent here. We can propose a few ideas. Perhaps interrupting the blunderbuss shot with the crown leads to the opponent losing their immunity to this projectile hit, thus getting hit by it on their own. It's kind of weird to imagine hitting yourself as a projectile, and it also doesn't really explain why it happens twice. But on top of this, I was never able to get this interaction to happen in any other scenario outside of a last stock situation. So it never happened if there were 2 or more stocks in a real match, and just never happened in training mode. No matter how many times I tried, it just couldn't be replicated here. Whereas when the victim was at their last stock and at high enough percent, I could get it to happen somewhat reliably. What I'm trying to say is that it's likely caused by a combination of the crown interrupting the attack and this KO zoom-in effect. We've seen how this messes up parts of the game in the past, so it's not crazy to assume that this is what creates problems with how the game registers the K-Rool being shot out of the blunderbuss after it was interrupted. It's gotta be a combination of factors too, since at these percents, the blunderbuss didn't usually cause the KO zoom anyways, even at thresholds where it does KO. But any more concrete, specific explanations about what's happening under the hood are theoretical and out of my expertise, so I'm gonna leave the video there. It's funny. I had a lot more facts lined up to go over in this video, expecting most of them to just be like a quick 1-minute segment or so. But then some of the prompts kind of spiraled out of control and we're left with what we got. Anyways, reminder again about my fact submission forms revival. If you've ever told me or submitted to me something that you haven't seen on the channel yet, just go ahead and resubmit it there if you'd like. I've got a big backlog of things on my Discord to look over, but resubmitting there could actually help me out a bit, honestly. And yeah, let's thank my patrons, who I'm going to go back to reading out the names of individually in their entirety. So that's Pixelboy, Raighne, Still700, Erick Delgado, SpiderJew, BanditGal, Entiss, Mintleaf wingedcatgirl, Stan Odd-Eye Circle, TheMonarchofTetris, and Theoyo99. Thank you for all the support and I hope you all live forever. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.